Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katie Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany in Rome, Katie in Seattle. And remember, if you want ad-free listening, join us over on patreon.com/The Bittersweet Life podcast. You'll find a link in the show notes. You can support the show and not have to listen to any advertisers. All right. So today we are going to discuss a article that was written in the newspaper. I still have the physical copy here a couple of weeks ago. Physical copy of the Seattle Times, which, you know.
Oh, I didn't know they still printed a physical copy.
Oh, they do. I only get it on Sundays, but my parents, I believe, get it every single day of the week. And this is in the kind of arts section, of course, in the travel department. And it says, the headline is, What to Do in Rome Based on What You Like to Do in Seattle. Now, I mean, talk about right up the alley of this show, right? This article. My mom even texted me about it. So let's just touch briefly on the article itself. And then I want to expand it further outward. So it's basically has these headings of, if you're into... You might like to go see this. So here's some of the headings. If you like hiking and exploring parks, that's one of the headings. If you like shopping at farmers markets, if you like enjoying the view, if you love pasta, pizza, and coffee, if you like art, if you like exploring neighborhoods, if you like iconic landmarks. All right. So that's
I feel like it starts out strong.
It starts
out really strong, and then it starts to go into like very general territory. Like
know.
if you like landmarks, interesting. I like landmarks.
Is that Seattle specific? I know. That's exactly how I felt about it. I'm like, yeah, people in Seattle are kind of into hiking.
Do you like to look at views, Seattle people?
I know. So that was my thing. I was like, yeah, we start out strong. If you like hiking and exploring parks. I mean, exploring parks is already getting a little mushy, but I would say that Seattle people do like going hiking, like they like being out in the great outdoors. So, we're getting strong there. But then, as soon as we're into like, if you like exploring neighborhoods, like, well, it could be anywhere, I like exploring neighborhoods, but I think you like exploring neighborhoods as well. And you don't live here.
And it's not only not Seattle specific, it's not even Rome specific.
Right.
So it's like exploring neighborhoods, looking at views, looking at landmarks. Those are things that everyone does everywhere when they harsh everywhere. I think we could have done a better job writing this article, Katie.
I think we could have done a fabulous job. Not to harsh the buzz of the poor person who wrote this article, but at the same point, I'm like, yeah, we could have done so much better with this article. Not only that, I think that some of the recommendations in here are good. Okay.
Yeah, a couple are.
Like, which one, is there one in that pops to your head where you thought, that's a good recommendation?
The Pistachio Market, I thought was a good recommendation because that's not on the tour. Like, so many of the things they recommend are like basic, like top 10 sites. The Pistachio Market is someplace that I would say 95 out of 100 tourists, if not more, are not going to see. Are not going to go there. And it is very local and it's a fun neighborhood and it's a fun market, and so I think that was a good suggestion.
In fact, Pistachio Market, so off the beaten trail that as many times as I've been to Rome, the first time I ever went there was the last time I was in town.
Really?
I met one of my Italian writer friend Ugo there. We met up there and then wandered around the market, and then we went out for lunch right near it, and there were a couple tourists there, a small handful, but mostly it was just locals buying the stuff. Okay, so that's good. One of the ones I thought that they were the most off about, if we're trying to tailor this to the Seattleite, like what people who live in Seattle are generally like, if you like art, the first recommendation is, as you might guess, to go to the Vatican museums. Now, knowing the Seattle sort of laid back vibe, the last art museum in the world you want to send them to, a Seattleite to, a person who wants to be able to like sit there and slowly revel in the art, is to the Vatican museums, where they're basically going to just be pushed through the hallways by the massive crowds. I was like,
that's where it falls apart.
I'm like, there's so many great art museums that are so mellow in Rome. I couldn't believe that was what they chose. Come on. Now our whole premise is shot. So
Exactly.
there were a few things.
Exactly.
So there are a few things I wanted to ask you about. First of all, I made a list of things that I think are more quintessentially Seattle
Hmm.
than these general headlines. And I thought maybe I'd put you on the spot and be like, if this is true, what would you have these people go see? We'll see how that goes.
Hmm.
But first and foremost, because you used to work for a tourist magazine, you've written
Hmm.
articles in this vein. Give
Oh
me
my
your
God.
general assessment of like, if you were given this assignment, let's say, how much I mean, I'm assuming they have an agenda of highlighting certain things in here,
Probably.
in how they tailored this article. Like, what is the approach in how you would think about this from your experience?
So I work not just for a tourist magazine, but a Rome magazine. So it was like every month, find a new way to talk about Rome. It
Yeah.
was a challenge. It was a serious challenge. I'm not going to say I never phoned it in. Sometimes I was like, I'm so tired. Let's just say, okay, let's do underground Rome,
Mm-hmm.
or really kind of obvious things. But occasionally I could pull out like a really like kind of weird idea. And I loved it when that happened. I had a lot of colleagues over the years, but I had these two particular different colleagues at different times who kind of were quirky like me and worked there long enough that they really reveled in like a good wacky angle on Rome. Um, so like the funniest ones that I remember, I mean, and the Christmas was always the biggest challenge of all
Right.
because we always had to write Christmas like way in advance, the Christmas issue. It's so easy to fall into the trap of just writing about the same stuff.
Right.
What happens in Rome at Christmas? And so we used to just like rack our brains to come up with odd ways to talk about Rome at Christmas. And I know I'm not going to take credit for this idea because it was not my idea. It was the first person I worked with when I worked there years and years ago, and she'd been there a long time by that point. And she said, "Let's do a Christmas shopping article, but it's based on personality disorders." So it was like, for the narcissist in your life, and it was like a mirror shop, or and for your friend who's afraid of bees.
Nice.
It was so specific. Um, it was a really fun article. And then another one that I did that I want to say I recycled for a mini episode on this show many years later.
Mm-hmm.
But it was what to do in Rome based on your favorite Christmas songs. So, like, if your favorite Christmas song is "Oh Christmas Tree," you got to go and you got to see the lighting up of the St. Peter's Christmas tree. If your favorite song is, "Oh Little Town of Bethlehem," you got to go see the live nativity scene. If your, so
Well,
it was.
that's very cute. But tell me, how did you approach it though? Did you pick the sites and then be like, what song would go with that site? Or did you pick the song and then
I think
try
I
to
did a
figure
little
it?
of both. I
Okay.
did a little of both, depending on which way it went. I did a movie one too. That's what I used for the mini episode. It wasn't the song one. It was a different year. I did like, what's your favorite Christmas movie? If it's Home Alone, like you got to go to the big toy store. If
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
Elf, you got to go to the Christmas village and see the elves, whatever.
Yes.
Um,
Very cute.
so, so that, but I mean, even for non-Christmas things, I've done articles like Rome based on your zodiac sign. So, like, if you're a Taurus, you got to go here. I've done both the regular, Western horoscope as well as the Chinese horoscope.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a fun challenge. I gotta say, if I had, it really helped if I had a good colleague who I could toss ideas around with. The last few years I was on my own, so it was really a little bit less fun.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
remember when I lived in Rome back now in 2013 and 14, and you were still at the magazine, and every month you'd have a feature article in the magazine, like the big article. And I
mhm.
would follow like what you suggested doing in that
Oh
feature
God,
article every single month. I don't know if you remember
did you?
that. Yeah.
You never told me that.
Oh, I
I don't
would. I think
think.
so. Like, I remember, like, there was a spooky theme in October, and then one time you did something about the Appian Way, so I went out there. I was always just like following whatever you told me to do as my adventure for that particular month.
Oh, that's cute.
Okay, so getting into some
But
of
I
the
will say this before we go back to the article. Sometimes, because this was a magazine that was funded by advertising,
right.
and sometimes my boss would be like, okay, you have to mention this particular restaurant, or you
Mm-hmm.
have to mention this particular exhibit. But it was usually a restaurant or a shop because it was rare that we would have exhibits advertising with us. It was more the shop or the
Right.
restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
That was always really hard because it's like, how am I going to make this sound natural? Like I'm really suggesting this. And a lot of times I hated that because I felt like it would kind of ruin the article if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it really, really well. And who knows if that didn't happen in this article as well. Although of course they would have no reason to recommend the Vatican because obviously the Vatican doesn't advertise with anyone.
I mean, I was just checking, and it just says that the woman who wrote it is a writer and photographer in Seattle, and it says it was special to the Seattle Times. So I don't know. She must have just been a freelancer who pitched it, is my guess, and maybe said, I can give you pictures too. I mean, this is a 2-page spread. Like this is not
Yeah.
a like loosey goosey article. You know, she has some quotes from various Italian people in here, and one of them described Rome as Manhattan on steroids.
I mean, I didn't.
I felt like, what? I don't know about that.
I think the only thing that I think would make that right would be if you're talking about the crowds. But there's a totally different pace to Rome than to Manhattan.
Yeah.
Rome does not have a fast pace. It's busy. It's busy and it's crowded and it can be chaotic. I mean, it's often chaotic and it can be stressful, but it's not busy. Like when you're walking down the main city streets where the office buildings are, I mean, although they're kind of spread out all over the place. I mean, there's no downtown Rome. There's no high rises, you know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's no sense of like there's no like people on the sidewalk like booking it down the road. Like occasionally you'll see people walking fast because there's people who walk fast all over the world, but they're few and far between in Rome. It's more like leisurely
Mm-hmm.
walking down the road. Even people on their way to work, they don't walk fast in Rome.
Yeah. I mean, another quote in here said, the entire city of Rome is a hike. And I also was like, I mean, it can
Ah,
be, your feet can certainly get sore after a day of walking in Rome, but I wouldn't call it a hike.
I kind of get that because Rome is full of hills, you know,
That's
and
true.
a
I
lot of the
get,
big sites are on the hills. The Capitoline Hill and the Palatine Hill and the Aventine Hill and the Gianicolo Hill, even though it's not one of the main hills. You know, there's a lot of hills in Rome. If you're trying to hit the big top sites, you will be, unless you're, taking a cab or the subway. If you're walking it, you'll be walking uphill quite a bit. So I think yes, I think that works. Okay, well, let's pause for a moment and take a quick break. Imagine one of your friends, someone you really like to spend time with, calls you up and says, "Want to come to Rome with me?" Not only that, she says, "I'm going to plan everything. All you have to do is book your flight. I will find us an amazing hotel to stay in. I will plan every single day out to make sure we see some of the most incredible sights in the city. I'll make sure we have a knowledgeable tour guide to take us around and explain the amazing things that we're seeing. I'll organize a rooftop aperitivo with a view of the city at sunset for our first night. I'll arrange a meal. I'll even get us a chauffeured car to drive us into town from the airport. All you have to do is show up." What would you do? Would you jump at the chance? That is what Katie and I are offering. We like to think that we are, in a way, your friends. We hope that if you listen to this show, that means you'd like to spend time with us, you enjoy our company. And we are offering something really special that we believe is different from any other organized trip to Rome that is out there. It is 6 days of exploration, discovery, history, beauty, joy, pleasure in an amazing location, one of the most beautiful hotels in the city. And we go deep. We're not afraid to go deep. We will take you every single day of the trip on a 3-hour walking tour that will delve into some of the mysteries, and we'll introduce you to some art and some artists that you probably wouldn't have discovered on your own. We'll take you to areas of the city that will feel like you're in a small town. You won't feel like you're in the crowded, bustling city that you might see on social media, but rather you'll be walking down narrow cobblestone alleys that only the locals know about.
We will share with you all of our favorite restaurants, bars, cafes, and ice cream shops. We will spend a couple of really memorable meals together. And most importantly, we'll get to know each other with the backdrop of this amazing city. If that sounds like something you're interested in, it's happening the first week of November this year, 2026. Email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com if you want to know more. We will be happy to answer all of your questions. And you can also visit our website, thebittersweetlife.net, which has a lot of additional information. We only have 4 rooms left on this trip because it's a very, very small, intimate group. Don't be surprised if by the end of the trip, not only have you gotten to know Rome extremely well, but you might have some new friends too. So get in touch with us soon. We can't wait to take you to Rome.
All right. Oh, well, so I wrote down a few things that I would say that I associate with the Puget Sound area. Not necessarily Seattle specific, but Seattle and its surrounding area. If you've never been to Seattle, Seattle is surrounded by lots of suburbs, and it also is really close to another giant city called Bellevue, but it's also surrounded by islands. And so a lot of people who might work in Seattle might live on an island somewhere outside of the city and have to commute by ferry or by water taxi. What's that?
My father did.
Oh, your father did. I didn't know that.
He lived in Poulsbo and then he lived in Kingston. So he wasn't actually on an island. He was on the Olympic Peninsula.
Yes.
This is when I was an adult, not when I was a child. And he, like, if you look at a map of Washington, can you visualize a map of Washington in your mind? There's like a big arm sticking out there. That's the Olympic Peninsula for our listeners, if you're not from the area. And there's a big island kind of near there called Bainbridge Island. And that island is the one that's connected by ferry. So if you live over in certain parts of the Olympic Peninsula, you'll drive over a bridge to get to this big island called Bainbridge Island. You'll drive across that island, and there you'll get a ferry to downtown Seattle, or Edmonds, which is a town north of Seattle. So my dad did this for many years when he was working right downtown and taking the ferry. And I'll never forget a card he sent me once. I don't know why he was writing me a card on that particular day. It must have been a special occasion. But he said, "I bet I'm the only stockbroker in the world who saw a whale on his way to work today."
That's awesome. I love that. It's so true.
Whales were my dad's favorite animal.
And I mean, it's a very diverse state. So the Puget Sound area is what we would consider west of the Cascade Mountains. So if you can just picture the state, it's like as if there's this huge mountain range that divides the west from the east. And the east is bigger, but it also kind of gets more deserty, more hot, more arid. The west is rainier and more green, more kind of rainforest-like. And sometimes they call that here the Cascade Curtain, because it not only changes the climate from one side to the other, you know, politically, it's often quite different as well. So the Cascade Curtain is what... Okay, so kind of following with this article and starting more specific and then getting more general. I went hyper specific, and this one might be a challenge for you because this is something that's a little bit quirky about this area. Okay. And I don't know, I guess I could put it in the if you like framing that she does in this article. If you like trolls and Sasquatches. So it's been a while since you've been here, Tiffany, but there's been an explosion of trolls and Sasquatches over the years.
Can I ask what a Sasquatch is?
Sasquatch is like Bigfoot.
Sure.
Bigfoot.
Oh, Bigfoot. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And trolls,
which is basically just like a big hairy guy, a big hairy thing, you know, is Bigfoot. And trolls are like the kind of thing that would live under a bridge. You know?
Yeah, but big? Are they big or are they little?
They're big.
They're big. Okay.
I mean, I think
I was thinking of gnomes.
I think from a folklore standpoint, they're probably smaller. But all of the ones that I know of around this area are huge. Okay.
Okay.
So there's the very classic, let's just do trolls first. There's the very classic, long-standing troll that lives under the Fremont Bridge. Fremont is a neighborhood in the city of Seattle, and this troll is made out of cement and other things. He's literally under the bridge, tucked up underneath the bridge, and he's so large that he's actually holding a Volkswagen, a literal Volkswagen, in one of his hands. But this has been there for a really long time. The Fremont troll is like been known for, I don't know, I don't know exactly when he was made, in the 70s sometime, I think.
So he was made. It wasn't like a whole bunch of rocks that looked like a troll and they call it a troll. It was made.
No,
specifically.
it's made by like 3 or 4 different artists. Yeah, made him, and is like an actual troll. You can mostly see his hands and his face because it looks like he's kind of tucked up under the bridge and he's coming out at you. But he's been up there forever. And, if you know, he's at the end of Troll Avenue or Troll Street or Troll Road. His street has a troll in the title. Okay, and then the newer trolls, the ones that are just new within the last 5 years, are these giant trolls that are made by a Danish artist named Thomas Dambo. And they're hidden all over the region. And they're massive. They're made completely of wood. But they also are in prominent neighborhoods around the city. Like there is one in Ballard. There's one in West Seattle tucked into Lincoln Park. There's one over on Vashon Island. And there's tons more. And their locations are not revealed until the troll is set up. And then people go to try to find them in various spots. And they only stay in those spots for 3 years unless the people who allowed it to be put there say that they want it to stay there for longer. But they're huge. Like I would come up to the one in Ballard, I probably would come up to like his ankle.
Wow.
They're these big wooden structures. So that's the trolls. Now, when it comes to the Sasquatches or the Bigfoot, that's always been kind of a deal around here because it's kind of a northwesty, rainforesty thing, whether you like them or not. You'll find like pictures of Sasquatches on pizza boxes here. But most specifically, in the explosion that has happened within the last 10 years, is that there's a muralist here in Seattle who goes by the single name Henry. And Henry paints murals all over the city. I think there's no way to not know who Henry is if you live in the city of Seattle, I think, at this point. But he decided in 2025 that it was going to be his mission to paint 1,000 Sasquatch heads all over the Pacific Northwest. And people volunteered and signed up to have them paint them on their houses and garages and empty walls and abandoned buildings. And my neighbor, like 4 of my neighbors within striking distance of my home, have a Henry Sasquatch on their the side of their homes or on their garages. They're just absolutely everywhere. So he's unavoidable whether you like him or not. I actually like his style. I don't prefer his Sasquatches. I think he makes other creatures that I like much better. So that's Henry. So if you love trolls and Sasquatches,
jeez, Katie, you're asking. This is a tough request.
Well, it could be some sort of creature or thing that is seen all over Rome.
A creature that you can see a lot in Rome is the lion.
Okay.
It's not it's an animal. It's not, or maybe a griffin, which is a mythical creature, but you're not going to see as many griffins as you see lions. You got ancient Egyptian lions in Piazza del Popolo. You have more ancient Egyptian lions at the base of the Capitoline Hill. You have more ancient Egyptian lions inside the Vatican museums in the Pinecone Courtyard.
They're all
Roman lions
buildings
in the Vatican museums. They're on buildings. Yeah, you're going to see more lions in Venice, by the way, because the winged lion, which is not actually supposed to be a griffin. Is a griffin a winged lion, Katie?
I think a griffin is like a part bird, part lion. Actually, it is, I think, a part bird, part lion. I'll look it up.
I think there's a lion in there somewhere. But anyway, it's not a griffin. It's what you'll see in Venice is a winged lion, which represents Saint Mark, who is the patron saint of Venice. So you will see them in Rome, but not as many as in Venice. So if you're going for some kind of specific creature that you'll see a lot of, I would say lions and maybe eagles.
Okay.
Because the eagle was the ancient Roman symbol.
And if you're into griffins, I just looked it up. A griffin is a mythical creature that has the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle. So if you want to combine both of them, you can have a griffin.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Okay. These next ones are like a lot less specific than that. Okay. If you like reading on an overcast day,
Ooh,
because
I know I
Seattle
do.
is a very reader-friendly town. This is one of the most literate cities in the country. People love books here. We got lots of independent bookstores. What do you think?
Well, I would say that Rome is not the same. Unfortunately, it's not a huge reading city. It's not a huge reading country, Italy. Unfortunately, but there are lots of bookshops. There are lots of independent bookshops. There are very few big box bookshops. Just maybe two different ones that I can think of with a few locations each. But bookshops are very common here and very specific. Like you'll find like a bookshop dedicated to esoteric books. I wandered into this bookshop the other day. I was so excited because it was all Italian books, and because I live so much of my life in Italian, I tend not to read in Italian because I'm just like I've had it. I need to read in my own language. So I didn't buy any books there, but it was all books about, just all these esoteric topics. There were Giordano Bruno stuff, Pico della Mirandola, other guys from that era. I feel like I wrote the name down somewhere because it was just so cool. Or I took the card or something, but now I don't remember anymore where it is or where I wrote it down. You can find around corners, you'll find used and non-used bookshops. There's the Open Door Bookshop in Trastevere, which is a used bookshop, which has a lot of English books. I think it's about half English and half
French.
Italian books.
French.
French.
It's French,
Oh, okay.
yeah. French and English.
Yeah, French and English. So there's that. There's lots of Italian used bookshops. And there are some really quirky ones. I don't know if you've ever wandered into the bookshop. It's right across the street, more or less, from the Hotel Raphael. Katie, if you know where that is, the big hotel with the vines hanging
Yeah.
down right by Piazza Navona. It's right across the street from there. I'd have to look up the name. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But this bookshop is one of those places where they just got all this weird stuff in there. Like there's a skeleton in the back, like reading a book. There's like just all sorts of weird stuff. It's a bookshop, but it is old. It's a used bookshop. In a city so old, people have lived here a long time, and people have grandparents and great grandparents and great 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 grandparents who left them their books. And these books often get shuffled around and sold to bookshops. And so I just feel like there's a lot of old books in this city that require a very, very large number of used bookshops. And so there are a lot of them, even though, like I said, it's not a huge reading city, although I think the older generations are big readers. It's sadly the younger generations that are not. And then of course there's the gorgeous libraries. We always take our guests on our Rome trip to one of the most beautiful libraries in the world, I would say. Which I'm not going to tell you the name of because
That's
you have to come on
exclusive. Yeah.
yeah, it's exclusive info. Some of our secrets are just too good. But it is absolutely beautiful. Those you've seen them in photographs if you've never been to one. One of those old Baroque or older libraries with the wood paneled curving bookshelves just going way up 4 or 5 flights up if you were in a modern house, and little catwalks running around the edges and ginormous globes. So
Yes.
there are definitely some book sites in Rome for sure.
Yeah, and if you want to see that, you'll have to come with us on our Rome trip this November 2026, the 1st to the 7th. Get in touch. All right. Well, here's the deal. We are going to split this episode in two because I have more things here. And so why not just continue on rather than bringing this episode to a close? So today we are going to bring the episode to a close, but this coming Wednesday, as in, just a couple short days away, we will be airing the second half of this discussion. So be sure to join us again. In the meantime, if you are from Seattle and you want to submit any ideas about what is a quintessential Seattleite or person from Puget Sound, feel free. You can always write us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. And that's also where you can write us if you want to investigate coming on the Rome trip with us this November and seeing these libraries and finding these bookstores in your own spot and looking for lions in your free time. bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye.